Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Tuesday, April 2nd. Must be you survived April Fool's Day. So I thought today we'd go over a few questions and the direction the channel's going and being able to speak the correct language to correct people in order to keep them, I don't want to say entertained, but stay tuned. All right, so welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know that. And we do a weekday show Monday through Friday, which is today's Tuesday. Some repair videos, and then we also dive into different subjects depending upon things that I think might interest you. And the only way I do know if it interests you or not is by the number of views, comments, likes, and shares. If I'm getting a large number of people watching the video, which for me honestly is like 100 people, over 100 people, 100 views, which isn't a lot on YouTube, um, with very few comments. Either I've done my job if I'm teaching an educational video on how to repair something. Either I did that well, or there's very few maybe experienced people watching the video, and it's more DIY guys, which you're all welcome. I want everybody here. I don't care if you're a housewife or a single mom and you're trying to figure out how to fix your weed eater or your lawnmower. I want you part of the channel. So that brings me to the direction of the channel and why stuff that I think would be really appealing sometimes isn't as appealing at all. But let's go first to some of the questions that are comments. And the one is, Randy, you're correct. Most of your two-stroke have two different fuel lines, sizes. And what I've seen is when it comes to a lot of your two-strokes, there's roughly 5, maybe 6 different fuel lines that you may encounter. And when I was telling you yesterday on ordering online by the foot instead of a 25 or a 50-foot roll that would last most people a lifetime, is to get 3 or 4 foot of the most common. That way, you're able to invest money elsewhere instead of all in the fuel line, because you need to have a couple different sizes. You have your small, your two strokes, but then you have your lawnmowers that run the 1/4 inch. And we carry both 1/4 inch in the clear and in the black coated by the box. And we sell those by the foot too if you need that. And the other question that was asked was, now one of you were saying to me, or asking me, that you were telling me that as you've gotten older, it's harder to see a spark on a tester. And that, especially during daylight, a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, I'll turn the lights off. And that's what helps me so I can see it, if it's got a good spark or not. A remote, not that I know of. The only remote that I know is if you got somebody foolish enough, maybe even your customer, if you wrap a wire around the top of the spark plug and have them hold it, and when you give it a yank, depends on how far the spark travels, either up into their elbow or their jaw is the other way. That's a remote way. You could just watch your customer. You may lose that customer, but at least you'll know that the unit had spark. But I thought about that, last night when I read the comment. And I'm wondering, I have, like, for electric fence, I have a digital tester, and one end probe goes to ground, and the other end hooks to the wire, and it tells you how much joules are running through that line. Whether they could make something similar to that, where it could be plugged into the spark plug. This is for you guys out there that have a lot higher IQs than me. Of something that could be made. Have it so that you could take and, with a plug on the other end, plug it into the spark plug or into the boot, both ends, and then have it show a reading. But have it show a reading in a way that once the reading shows, that it stays there until you clear it, so that people that do have problems with eyesight maybe could see the meter better than they could the plug. But other than that, I don't know of anything on the market. Maybe Jason or Travis, because they've seen a lot more than me. Even Amos might know something with his background. So that brings us to the direction of the channel. So what I try to do, and I don't know if it helps or hinders, is I had a college professor, because in IT, I used to teach a lot of IT to other students. And he told me, he said, what you need to do is you need to always teach to the bottom denominator. And what that means is, if you teach it to the bottom denominator, the student that has the least amount of knowledge, then you should be able to convey to the whole group what you're talking about. But what I found in doing so is the ones that were in the middle to upper bracket kind of checked out, because they're like, we all know this. And I understood they knew this, but I was still trying to not leave anybody out. So you run a risk of, by teaching to the least knowledgeable person in the room, you do run the risk of losing your more knowledgeable people. And I don't know if that might be affecting the channel. Are some of you guys ready to check out because it's not informational enough? We're not using the right terminology. I know the right terminology for most things in small engine repair, but I keep trying to get myself to go back to what the professor told me, and that is, speak to the lowest educational level in that field. So let me know on that. I know I don't worry so much about missing a few steps here and there that aren't really crucial, because I kind of rely on you to correct me or to add to it, and I encourage that. Most people that are doing YouTube, they don't know how to take criticism, and correcting me is not criticism. If you're knowledgeable about something or I'm missing something, then why should I criticize you for pointing that out? Because my goal is for everybody in the room to have a clear understanding of it. And if I run a ship where I'm the captain and no one can go against my words, if the ship has got a hole in it and someone doesn't speak up and say there's a hole, captain, in the ship, as the ship is going down, then you're kind of sidestepping the culprit, right? Because you know that ship's going to sink. It's got a hole in it. They could have patched it if the captain was willing to listen and to take criticism from one of his crewmen. But I see that a lot on YouTube, especially, where there's criticism, constructive criticism, and then there's just blatant crap, BS. And some people say, well, there's a fine line there. No, there's not. You can tell when someone's being idiotic and sarcastic and just demeaning versus someone that is trying to educate and correct. Well, let me know what you think on that. So that leads us into the next segment of Amos. You were saying, the biggest asset, and I totally get it. I understand it, and I totally agree, is your ability to talk to people differently depending upon their skill set. And you were explaining that if you were talking to the engineers over to NASA, you had a certain language that you used. Or if you had, a heating and air conditioning company that did installs, you had a different way of talking to them, a different level. And that's what I had to do a lot in the IT field, in information technology, which is your computer systems, programming, and stuff like that. Was when I started the business, designing websites, doing programming, apps, all that, and I had guys working for me. My biggest asset was I had the ability to take what one of the programmers were saying and take that language, jargon, all big words usually, right? Because they would go out, it would be like an hour explanation of what they just did that I could take in 2 minutes and tell a layperson exactly what they just said. But programmers have a tendency to understand that if you want to create a program of Mary walking from the house to the store, you can't leave out a step. Maybe Mary had to put her shoes on, or Mary had to turn the doorknob for the doorknob to open to walk out. If Mary didn't turn the doorknob, she's going to walk into the wall. That's a lot like programming, is that you have to break it down to the minute step, because you're telling a computer how you want it to play out, how that program is supposed to run. And the rule has always been garbage in, garbage out. And I think programming, when I took programming, is a lot different than programming today. Today, you just have to ask AI, hey, run me a program of steps for Mary to go from the house to the store. And AI will plot out those steps, right? So, yeah, so I think that being able to speak to the lowest when need be, and then the middle people, a little bit different language, and then the people that are, when I'm talking to other programmers or someone that's already in that IT field and had a good grasp on the language, I would go into more detail because they were looking for more details, whereas your low man on the totem pole is just looking for, I gotta have something that'll work for me. Do you have something? End of story. And a good example of that is if you have a shop and you're repairing stuff, you've run into this before. Of As a mechanic, you understand the steps that need to be taken. Like compression is always first, right? Because compression comes out in different ways. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when you have low compression or lower compression than what it was when it was new, there are certain things that will start showing up. And if you don't have a good grasp on it, you can chase your tail for quite a while. And compression is one of them. More than once I've had to sit a customer down and tell them, your machine has not enough compression. And they will argue with me about, well, it still runs. Yeah. Well, either it's hard starting to try to get it to pick up the fuel, or you're giving it a shot of carb cleaner to get it started every time. Because once it's running, it'll stay running. But then the other things that'll start coming out are no power. When you throttle up, it's bogging down. Now, can it be other things? Yes. It could be your spark arrestor's plugged and it can't exhaust, right? On a two-stroke. There's a screen in there. Could it be that? Yes. But if we sit down and we do compression first, and our compression tells us it's under 90, it's not saying that it won't run. It's just saying it won't run and do peak performance and what we're looking for. So, there is teaching to the lowest denominator. Is they think that if it doesn't have any compression, it won't do anything. And that's sometimes the case. But normally, there's telltale signs along the way. And that is not powering up like it used to be, under load, hard starting. There's a number of different things that will take place. But again, they could always be something else. Could be a spark plug fouling out, breaking down, coil breaking down. I understand all that. But you have to let the customer know that I've done this before in the past, is I've actually brought their unit into the shop, put a compression tester on it, and then showed them what it was reading. 75, pushing to 80. It'll still run. I'm not saying it won't run. I'm just saying that it's not going to run well. And if you're happy with it not running well, who am I to say, right? So you have to be able to talk to, if you're going to run a shop, you have to be able to talk the language with the mechanics, or if you're a mechanic. And you also have to have the ability to talk to lay people that aren't mechanics, that are interested in what's going on with their unit. Because you have different classes of customers. You have the one class that, I don't care what's wrong with it, fix it, give me the bill, and I just want a carefree summer. And then you have the others that are interested in what we did and why we did it. And we've always learned in the shop to keep any of the old junk parts. And we offer it to the customer. Here is your junk. Do you want it? And most of the time it's no, throw it in the scrap iron pile. But I've given them that option. I don't have anything to hide in the shop. I'm not, padding the bill. I'm not just doing a part swap. I'm not doing any of that kind of stuff. If it works, it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. And there's a number of ways to find out what your culprit is. So compression is a big one when it comes to talking to customers. Is you need to be able to talk to that customer and say, okay, this is the range for compression. And we need at least 90 psi or above for it to run and run well and to give you no headaches, where it's easy start and so forth. And if it's below that, then you're looking at possibly a total rebuild. But before you go jumping, you want to check other things too as well before giving the customer the news, right? But the first thing you should always do is throw a compression tester on, just so it gives you a baseline, right? So on that note, I'm going to finish up today. You guys have a great Tuesday. We'll see you here bright and early tomorrow morning. Am I boring some of you guys that are just ready to check out because I'm not getting in depth? Should I do like a repair video for the layperson and then, work on another one for more in depth for those of you that have skills and have been doing it for a while and maybe want to learn new things that you didn't know that were out there? And I'll be honest with you, I'm learning new things that I didn't know. I did the ultrasonic machine. I had never used one before. I never saw much need for one. But after talking with a number of you, it was a worthwhile investment. At least enough to try it, right? And so far, it's met above my expectations. So we're never too old or never too experienced to learn things. And I always say, keep an open mind. And you might learn something new today. On that note, thanks so much for watching. And if you have any pointers for me, feel free to drop them in the comments. Appreciate them all.